All right. So you guys should be seeing me in a corner up here at the board. And then, oh, it is. Yes, it's going to be awesome. Okay. Sorry, I'm nerding out for a minute. All right. So we are going to continue. We're on Unit 5. All right. We're still on functions. I'm just going to write the symbol. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to look at is identifying functions. Okay. So identifying functions. So there's a couple ways you can identify functions. Okay. The first one we're going to look at is through a table or coordinate points. All right. So when we identify functions, all right, there is a rule. The x coordinate cannot, and I want you to underline the word cannot, repeat. Okay. Repeat. So the x coordinate cannot repeat. All right. So if I get a list of coordinates, okay, and the x repeats one time, not a function. All right. So we'll look at an example of that. So I'm going to list out some coordinate points here. So let's say I have, this would be our example 1. All right, we're going to list some points here. Let's say I have 6, 4, negative 8, 7, 2, negative 9. Okay. And your question might say something like this. It might say, is this a function? Question mark. Okay. So is this a function? So what we're going to do is we're going to look at these points. All right. So I have 6, 4, negative 8, 7, 2, negative 9. And if I go by my rule over here, the x cannot repeat, all I'm going to look at are these right here. These are going to tell me if this is or is not a function. Okay. None of my x coordinates repeat. Okay. Therefore, this is a function. Okay. My x didn't repeat there, so we're good. That is a function. All right. So let's look at another example. This would be example 2. And we'll keep the same thing. Is this a function, yay or nay? Okay. So we're going to list some points here. 2, 5, negative 3, 5, 4, 5. So is this a function, yes or no? Okay, this is a problem that confuses a lot of people, all right, because what we get focused on is the word repeat, and we're trying to figure out if x does repeat. So we think repeat, and people look at those 5s and they see those 5s and say that's not a function. Well, this one is a function, because if I look at my x value, okay, my x value does not repeat. My y can repeat, but my x can't. Okay, so my x value here, it does not repeat. All right, they're all different, so therefore this one also is a function. Okay, so this would be a function here because that does not repeat. Okay, say example 3, and so I have negative 2, 9, 6, 14, negative 2, 7, and 7, 0. Okay, was this a function, yes or no? Remember, all we're doing is looking at the x values. Okay, so if I look at these x values here, all right, look at my x's. This is a function, yes or no? This one is not. This one is not a function. Okay. Reason being that it's not a function, my x repeats. I have a negative 2 here and a negative 2 here. So those make this not a function. All right. when my x's repeat, it's not a function. Now, another way that you can view this, they'll give you the same question, but they'll ask it in a table form. So it may look like this. You might have x, y, and you'll have -2, 6, -2, 7, 9, 14, 7, 0. It'll look like that. Okay, so this is in table form. So you're looking at table forms. This is a lot easier to look at because all you're looking at here in your table is, again, focus on the x's. If the x repeats, not a function. If the x does not repeat, then it is a function. Okay. All right. So one thing, the next thing we're going to talk about is, so we have two ways over here to list our functions. Okay. We have our coordinate points, and then we have our table. All right. But they also will list coordinates in what we call a mapping diagram. Okay, a mapping diagram. So let's say I take these points here, and they're going to have these in a mapping diagram. All right, and for a mapping diagram, it'll look something like this. We'll have, let's change this. We'll have your x values here and your y values here. Okay, and we'll put our x values -2, 6, 7, and my y's 9, 14, 7, 0. All right, so you might be saying, well, how come you didn't list -2 again? Because in a mapping diagram, what they use is arrows, and these arrows will show us what the coordinate points are. So for example, this point is -2, 9, 6, 14, -2, 7, and 7, 0. Okay, so in a mapping diagram, these arrows show me what points go where. Okay, so for example, this arrow is going from -2 to 9, so that would mean that point is -2, 9. So if we were listing points from a mapping diagram, we would just follow the arrows and connect them. All right, so -2, 9, then I would have -2, 7, okay, 6, 14, because my arrow is going from my 6 to my 14 and 7, 0. This is just another way to list points and functions. Okay, you won't see it very often, but we do have a couple IXLs with this that I posted videos on yesterday. So this is a mapping diagram where you have your X on the left, your Y, then you have arrows drawn to show your points. All right. So any questions there? All right. Now let's look at, okay, we're going to look at identifying functions from a graph now. So we're still in Unit 5 function. We'll write that back up here. Identifying functions from a graph. Okay, so when I identify functions from a graph, we have what we call a vertical line test. Okay, we have a vertical line test. So what this is on a graph, we're going to draw a vertical line. Okay, and if that line touches more than one point, it's not a function. Okay, so a vertical line test, the one thing I want you to remember here is it cannot, we're going to underline cannot, touch more than one point on the graph. And I'll show you what that looks like here in just a second. Okay, so it cannot touch more than one point on the graph. All right, so if I sketch me out a graph, and I'm sure there's a way on here I can just, save me a picture of one, but we'll figure that out another day. So if I sketch my graph here, all right, and I'm just going to draw just a random function. Let's just say I graph this function and it looks something like this. Okay, So my blue line, we're going to determine if my blue line is or is not a function. So with the vertical line test, all we're going to do is I'm just going to draw a vertical line just anywhere on the graph. Okay, there's my vertical line. How many points does this touch on the graph? Well, it touches one. Let's draw another one over here. How many points did it touch? Well, it only touched one. Did it touch more than one? Nope. This one is a function. Okay. Straight line, it's a function. Okay. Functions. Let's look at another one here. So let's get you another graph. All right. So we're going to determine if this is or is not a function. Let's say I have this graph. We're going to use our vertical line test to determine if this is or is not a function. So some of you may look at that and go, well, that's not a function, just because it has curves in it. Okay, it might kind of throw you off a little bit. Let's say I draw a vertical line here. How many points did I touch? I only touched one. Let's draw another one. How many points did I touch? I only touched one. So this would be a function. Okay, functions can have curves. All right, that's okay. They can have curves. All right, so this one is a function. Now let's look at one that's not a function. What's the wrong button? Do that? Nope. All right, so let's say I'm here. Let's see, what's a good one? No, that's a function. What am I doing? Forget that one. That one would have been a function. I was thinking sine and cosine graph. All right, let's say, okay, here we go. Would this be a function? Okay, if we graph this, I think this is your tangent. If I drew a straight line here, a vertical line, 1, 2, 3, it touched 4 points, not a function. Okay, that would not be a function there. All right, so vertical line test, we're determining a function from a graph, and when we're determining a function just from a group of numbers or group of points, you're looking at those x coordinates. All right, those x coordinates repeat, it's not a function. Vertical line test, if it touches more than 1 point,